Howdy y'all, Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am in the tomato patch today because things are getting quite wild and I need to try to get them under a little bit of control. So even though I just ran some string trellis like 8 days ago because we have gotten a ton of rain lately and they were recently fertilized, I'm going to need to run quite a bit more trellis, and I also need to do some pruning at the bottom of the plants. So I'm gonna flip this around, show you guys how wild this is, and then we're gonna get it under control. Let's start back here. These are the determinate tomatoes. Now these aren't actually going to get any pruning unless there's some leaves that are touching the mulch. Otherwise I'm just letting them go kind of wild. They will get some trellis run because even though they were almost too short last week to run the trellis, they need at least 2 more runs this week. So hooray for all the rain for making these things grow. Going a little wild. Now this row has the indeterminate slicer type tomatoes and it will get pruned. I'm going to try to go up probably up to this, at least to this first run of string trellis. That will give about, or sorry, that's the second run of string trellis. This is the first. That will give a good 10 inches above the soil, I would say. And then we need to run probably at least 2 more lines down the run of the bed, because as you can see, things are getting really cray-cray. There's also some wayward branches coming through here, so I need to try to weave them into the trellis as well to kind of try to keep them in line here so that they don't impede the sunlight on those pretty onions down there. And then the cherry tomatoes, I'm going to do the same. You can see, especially down at the bottom where some of the branches are starting to get a bit icky looking, we're gonna prune those off. And we're gonna try to weave these wayward branches into the Florida weave trellis, run a good 2 more lines of trellis down, maybe 3, because these cherry tomatoes have really put on a ton of growth in the last week. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because it's a little bit crazy. Okay, one note on the pruning. I have my pruning shears here. Between each plant, I'm going to attempt to remember to clean off my shears with rubbing alcohol. This is just, I put it into a spray bottle for ease of use, and then I have a cleaning cloth here that I'm just gonna spray it onto the cloth and then wipe off the shears and keep on trucking, and hopefully I don't cut down any actual plants. I just remove the branches that aren't necessary. rest of the pruning off camera. It was these 2 rows. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is, of course, the Florida weave trellising. This twine is just like a giant roll that I got at Home Depot last year. I guess it was either in 2 sections or I accidentally cut it into 2 sections. I'm not sure which. So the plan for this is at least 2 runs of this trellis down the cherry tomatoes and these indeterminate slicers here. I think I only need 1 on this one because there's still a couple of plants that are kind of short, but we'll see what happens whenever I get to it. Okay, the trellising is done and the pruning is done. So let's take a walk down the tomato patch aisles and see what these tomato plants are looking like now. This one is just barely tall enough to be able to reach over that. That's why it's kind of looking a little smushed. But within a day or two, it'll be clear of that and it'll be nice and floofy again. Over here, some of these are tall enough for another run, but a lot of the plants are still pretty short, so I just left it at 2 more runs of string trellis. And you can see that where I pruned down below is much clearer now, so that ought to help me find the tomatoes whenever they start growing. And then of course the wild and carefree cherry tomatoes. Honestly, I could probably go ahead and do a 3rd run of string trellis. Unfortunately, I am out of time for that for today, so maybe later today I can get back here and run a 3rd, but for now the 2 certainly helped give it some more support, because if you can see, we're really starting to get a lot of cherry tomatoes setting fruit all the way down on these plants. So definitely glad they have some support now. All right, so one note about pruning and or trellising, I guess there's 2 notes. So if you wanted to prune to a single leader, meaning there's just one main stem running up the entire plant, then I do have videos in the past detailing that. I am kind of letting things go more wild these days so that I could get more tomatoes. If you prune to like a single leader, you'll get fewer tomatoes, but they will be bigger. I don't necessarily care about the size because I'm just canning them, most of them anyway, so I just want as many off of the plants as I can possibly get. For the single leader, anything that kind of shoots off of that is not setting fruit or creating blooms or any of that, you're going to want to prune it off. Other than, you know, singular leaves and stuff, you do need to leave enough leaves on there to kind of shade those fruits as they grow and ripen so they don't get sunburned. But other than that, single leader, prune that bad boy as much as you can. If you want to provide stakes for each of your tomato plants, you can do that as well. That's what I ended up doing last year, was hammering in some pole stakes that were about 6 foot tall and then still running that Florida trellis along it. I would zip tie the tomatoes to the pole every so often, and then the Florida weave trellis just kind of gave support to the remaining leaves and stuff that were kind of running beyond that pole trellis. So that is also an option. Cages you can use. Keep in mind, for your larger tomato plants, you're going to want really big cages so that they have plenty of room. I tend to stick towards some sort of trellising situation because it's easier for me, and because I'm in raised beds, the cages would take up way too much room and they're not really super efficient or effective for me. But if you're in ground, that might be a super viable option for you. But if you found this video useful and or entertaining, please like, subscribe, comment, do all those different YouTube-y things. Unfortunately, that's all I have time for today. But until next time, go find a way to get those garden manicures. Bye!